Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for today's webinar hosted by Cosvox. My name is Noah Barnett and I run marketing here at Cosvox. We're going to be spending the next 45 minutes to an hour just really understanding how we can help you drive success on Giving Tuesday. Rob Wu, the CEO here at Cosvox, will also be joining us towards the middle of the presentation to share a little bit more of best practices and tips on how you can be effective in creating a fundraising page for Giving Tuesday. Just a few things of housekeeping. The response for this webinar was tremendous. We had over 500 people from around the world register for today's presentation. And so we're just grateful. So I just want to stop and say thank you for joining us. Thank you for saying, hey, what you're offering is valuable. And so what we want to do is make sure it's as valuable as possible to you. So we're going to cover a lot of ground during today's presentation. In addition, I'm actually recording the presentation right now, and we'll be sending you the recording and the slides at the end of the presentation so that you can review them further. You can look over things that maybe you missed. There's a lot of references throughout the documents that is just going to be helpful as you begin to think well about planning, creating your campaign, and also promoting it on Giving Tuesday. So if you're just joining us, thank you guys for being here, and know that it will be recorded and you will receive that recording at the end of the presentation along with the slides and everything so that you can share it with your fundraising team or your board, or you can review it yourself. Also, if you learn anything on today's webinar and want to share it out, feel free to do that on Twitter and tag us at Cosvox and hashtag GivingTuesday. That will not only help others see your message, but also them learn on how we can help advance the movement of generosity around Giving Tuesday this year. Like I said, my name is Noah Barnett, and I run marketing here at Cosvox. But actually, prior to running marketing here at Cosvox, I ran growth and fundraising for an international relief nonprofit, and actually was a Cosvox customer. So I've actually been in your shoes. I've ran Giving Tuesday campaigns. I know exactly what it takes to run a successful campaign. And so what I hope to do is even just share a little bit of what I've learned over the years on how to run an effective campaign, along with what we've learned from our thousands of customers that run Giving Tuesday campaigns every year with us here at Cosvox. This just gives us a little bit of a roadmap that we're going to be journeying through together during today's presentation. We're going to start off by talking about Giving Tuesday don'ts, don't do's, and must do's. We're also going to talk about community-driven fundraising. At its core, Giving Tuesday is really a community-driven movement. It's a day of giving driven by the community. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what we mean by community-driven fundraising and how you can actually tap into that to reach new donors and also acquire or raise more funds for your cause this Giving Tuesday. Then we're going to spend the bulk of our presentation really focusing on steps to success, how to plan your campaign, how to create your campaign, and then how do you actually promote your campaign successfully. Then Rob's going to be joining us to show us how you can actually set up a fundraising site for free using Cosvox's community-driven fundraising platform. And then we're going to spend the last 15 minutes of our time together really just answering your questions. We want to make sure that we dig in on maybe the specifics of what you're trying to do. And so we'll be taking those questions throughout the presentation. You can drop them in the questions pane of GoToWebinar, and we'll get to those throughout the presentation or during the live Q&A. For those that don't know much about Cosvox, Cosvox is actually an online fundraising tools that helps you really easily create, manage, and promote your fundraising campaigns without more staff or increasing your budget. It's perfect for any type of fundraising campaign. You can reach new donors with peer-to-peer. You can create mobile optimized donation pages for things like Giving Tuesday or your annual fund. And also you can just streamline your online fundraising and reduce your workflow. In addition to that, we focus a lot on education and not only just providing you a tool, but how do we also infuse that with best practices, education, resources, and learning. And so we have a success team that works alongside you to help you be successful, but also we do things like this that really share the learnings that we have. And so here at Cosvox, we really have a three-pronged approach to really helping you be successful. We want to provide you the tools to be successful. the resources, and the support. And that's what we really believe in here at CosVox. So how does that really apply to Giving Tuesday? So Giving Tuesday was started more than like 6 or 7 years ago. That's really a movement of generosity. And so with the convergence of Black Friday and Cyber Monday, the 92nd Street Y and a few other partners got together and said, how do we actually create a day that's dedicated to giving and to generosity? How could we start, maybe just spark a movement of people around the world coming together and rallying towards or for the causes they believe in, the changes they desire to see in our world? And so that's really when Giving Tuesday was born. And the movement has actually been significant. Just in 2016 alone, there was 1.6 million gifts given to charitable causes participating in Giving Tuesday. That accounted for $177 million in funding, which is an insane amount of money given specifically on this one day. But it's not just a day that you can participate in and raise money. There's a lot of misconceptions around Giving Tuesday and what it is and what it isn't. And one of the things we see is customers come to us and they're disappointed with the results that they had. Or organizations that read our resources and are planning well, and they just don't feel confident that their Giving Tuesday campaign was actually successful. And what we see is that it's because there's a perception that just by participating in Giving Tuesday, you're going to raise money for your cause. And what we see is it's not about participating, but it's about rallying together. So the Giving Tuesday movement is not just a pile of donors that are waiting for you to share your campaign, but rather an opportunity for you to leverage the day of giving and generosity to inspire, activate, and rally your community to support the cause and the change that you're trying to make in the world. And so one thing we see is that you cannot assume success. So by just showing up, you won't have a successful campaign. Just by creating a campaign on Facebook or creating a campaign on your website or even creating a campaign using CosVox, if you just create a campaign and show up on Giving Tuesday, you're not going to be successful. The second don't is that you can't just rely on social or social media like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's not just a social media campaign. What we see a lot is, yes, Giving Tuesday was started as a social movement, an online movement that really leveraged the power of our connected world. But it's not simply a social media campaign. And so just sharing it on Facebook or just sharing it on Instagram or Twitter, that's not going to get you the best results. You really have to have a multi-channel promotion strategy. Everything from maybe using a dedicated fundraising site where you have a very comprehensive, focused page that talks about your Giving Tuesday campaign. You have to have a fundraising appeal, so using best practices for how do you actually write a fundraising appeal. And then you have to use email and, yes, use social media, but don't just rely on social. The other thing that we see is that Giving Tuesday campaigns that aren't successful are ones that have a general ask, where they say, hey, this is our organization, we do great work, support us on Giving Tuesday. Or they send out messages to their community and supporters and say, hey, it's Giving Tuesday, donate now. Those types of asks that are just general don't tend to work as well as asks or appeals or campaigns that are more specific, that focus on a specific goal, a specific scope of impact. And so what you really need to do is think less transactional and more community driven. And so what we see a must do is, how do you set a clear goal for your campaign? How do you actually focus on the why? So not that you're just raising $10,000 or $5,000 or $3,000, but why does that matter? Who will care if you don't reach that goal? And focusing on that versus what you're trying to do or what the transactional value that you're trying to gain on Giving Tuesday, the more success you'll have. In addition, one of the things we see is that stories are what inspire people. And so telling stories or finding a story that represents the impact your organization has is going to be more helpful and help you drive success on Giving Tuesday rather than just a general appeal. And the fourth thing we see you must do on Giving Tuesday is inspire and rally people. And so, what we mean by this is actually communicating to your community, bringing people together, and saying, we're coming together on Giving Tuesday to accomplish something. Together, we're going to fight and participate and rally together this day for a change that we're trying to make in our world. And that's your job as a fundraiser. And so, we're going to walk through how do you actually do that successfully. But before we do that, we really need to focus on what is the difference between a transactional world and a community-driven world. And what we see is that the world we fundraise in has really just fundamentally shifted. And not that it's shifted, but it's actually rapidly changing all the time. And this requires us to really rethink how we go about fundraising. So yes, we're going to be talking a lot about Giving Tuesday today, but a lot of the shifts that are going on in our world are requiring us as fundraisers to think differently about how we run fundraising campaigns in general. So not just on Giving Tuesday, but during year end, your annual campaign, your spring campaign. How do you think well about that? And these are just some of the shifts that we've seen over the past 7 years that have really changed how we have to think about fundraising. The world we live in now is more digital first and always connected. How we shop, buy, find things to like is all online and is much more connected in how we look for recommendations and are driven by the relationships we have. I don't think I've gone to a restaurant in the past 2 years without looking it up first on Yelp or asking my friends what they think about that. And that's not just a millennial thing or a digital savvy thing. More and more people are adopting this type of approach to how they shop, buy, and find causes to invest in. And then the third shift we see is that there's an increased competition for attention. And not just on Giving Tuesday, but just in general. The news cycles are getting shorter and shorter, and so there's always a new headline. Netflix is always releasing something new like Stranger Things 2 that's going to distract your entire community for a week and a half or 2 weeks. There's always a new cat video or a political dilemma or some news cycle thing that's happening in our world that's consuming your community, your audience's attention. And so, how do we think a little bit differently about this? And so, what we've seen is that before, in a more transactional driven fundraising world, is that it was all about renting attention. And so, you could just blast your list, you could just cold call, you could send direct mail, you could do advertising, and really prioritize budget and reach. But in today's relationship driven economy, it's all about building relationships. And so, many of you, before we got on today's presentation, said, I really want to know how to acquire new donors. And I don't think I've met many fundraisers that don't want to acquire new donors. It's a core tenet of what we as fundraisers are looking to do. But I think the assumption sometimes is to reach new donors, we as the fundraiser have to figure out how to increase our reach. Maybe by buying ads or having more events or buying more lists. But what we see is that what works better in today's relationship-driven economy is focusing more on your current community of supporters. And how do you activate them to help you reach more of your community? And what we see on Giving Tuesday and how this really ties back to Giving Tuesday is that's what Giving Tuesday was all about. How can generosity spur generosity and spur more generosity? How can people say, hey, I'm participating in Giving Tuesday and I'm supporting this organization. You should do it too. And so similar to how when people vote, they wear I voted stickers, Giving Tuesday is a day that says, hey, I voted for the change that I want in the world. You should too. And so it's all about this idea of building referrals, sharing stories, showing friends that I'm participating in this. And so your job as a fundraiser to have a successful Giving Tuesday campaign is figuring out how you can tap into that. And so that's what we're going to spend a lot of time talking about. What we see for Giving Tuesday and other fundraising campaigns is it's not about you just blasting out your list and hoping 5% of the people respond, but rather focusing on how do you build a community-driven fundraising campaign. How do you make your supporters share your message with their friends, family, and community? How do you get those individuals to be inspired to want to share what your campaign is all about with their friends, family, and community? And so what we've actually developed is something called the community-driven fundraising approach. And so we believe any nonprofit can adopt this three-step methodology and really turn their community into advocates. And this is perfect for Giving Tuesday, because what your job as a fundraiser really is to inspire your community by telling stories, sharing videos, writing a compelling case for support, turning people into supporters and activating them via peer-to-peer, via campaigns, into becoming fundraisers. And then how do you actually rally advocates to actually inspire more people in the community to be a part of your cause? And so as we talk about the steps to success, we're going to be talking a lot about how you apply this community-driven fundraising approach to the work that you're doing. And so I love this quote by Seth Godin. It's something I would encourage you to share with your teams. But we feel like because of all these changes that are going on in the world, is that some organizations will thrive from this increased chaos, some will be unprepared, and some will merely fight it and lose. And what we're here to do at CauseVox is to help you be an organization that thrives. Our mission here at CauseVox is that we believe that together we can help good flourish. And we do that by equipping you to be successful. So on Giving Tuesday, what we're hoping to do is provide you a checklist for success. How do you set specific goals, write your appeal? How do you try to secure a matching gift? We're going to give you some tips on how to do that. How do you craft a communications timeline? How do you launch your fundraising site? And how do you create your promotional assets to be successful? And so we're going to spend the rest of our time together today really walking through these 5 steps and giving you ideas, giving you best practices, and even showing you some examples on how you can be successful today. Let's dive in. So the first thing you need to do to be successful on Giving Tuesday is set a specific goal and write a compelling case for support or fundraising appeal. And so what we see is as you think about Giving Tuesday, you really need to answer 4 questions. You need to understand, you need to ask yourself, what do you want to do? And it seems simple, but the question is really powerful. What are you trying to accomplish in this 24-hour giving campaign? Or even if you're going to use Giving Tuesday to launch your year-end fundraising campaign, what are you trying to accomplish? What do you want to do? Maybe it's build a new classroom. Maybe it's filling a program funding gap because you're down $100,000. Maybe it's trying to fill a gap because you need to raise $6,000 to be able to provide more services to the community in the way that you do. Whatever it is, you have to understand what you're actually trying to do. And so what success looks like is essential to know before you dive into your campaign. And so we're going to talk a lot of mechanics, how to promote your campaign, but if you don't know what your organization's trying to accomplish during that time period, what you want to do, it's really difficult to be successful. The next question you need to answer is how much money are we trying to raise? So if we want to do this, how much money do we need to try to raise to accomplish that? And why is it that much money? Again, these questions are really simple and they might seem elementary, and maybe some of you have, thought about this and you're like, Noah, like, why are you asking me these questions? What we see is organizations that are not successful, they didn't answer these foundational questions, which led to them being unclear in their messaging, unable to communicate and rally and inspire their community, and really unable to gain traction both with their supporters and with their supporters' community and networks. So you really need to know what you want to do and how much money you're trying to raise and why is that important. The third question I always ask or advise nonprofits to focus on is what are the other goals that you might have? And so sometimes you're focused on a financial goal. And so when we raise money, it was, hey, we want to provide enough to support 100 refugee families on Giving Tuesday. And so in 24 hours, we're going to try to raise $24,000 and help 100 refugee families. And the reason we need that much money is because that's how much it's going to take to help support that family for the next 3 months during the winter. But some of our other goals outside of that were we really wanted to see an increase in the number of supporters that participated. And so we also had a donor number. So instead of just having a fundraising goal, we would also have an internal goal and saying, hey, we want 100 donors to participate, or we want 5 donors to participate. Or in other cases, we've worked with customers that they don't want to raise a certain amount of money, but they want to see 100 people sign up to fundraise during December for their cause. So they use Giving Tuesday more as an activation day. How do we get 100 people to say, hey, I want to fundraise on behalf of this change that we're trying to make in the world? And so that's what their goals are for Giving Tuesday. And then again, why does this goal matter? And so this is kind of goes back to the second question, but it's really trying to focus on why does this matter? Who's going to care if you're unsuccessful? These are a few example goals just to help you get started and think well about what you're trying to do. And so example Giving Tuesday goals might be to raise $24,000 to build a new classroom to support 30 new children, or rally 100 supporters to provide 100 families with care packages, activate 200 supporters to fundraise for our new community garden. These are the types of foundational statements that you really need to nail down. And so instead of jumping into how do we jump into this, how do we get excited about Giving Tuesday, what is Giving Tuesday all about? First and foremost, you have to know it's a 24-hour fundraising campaign, or it's a way to launch your year-end campaign. And so what are we actually trying to accomplish? And so setting a very clear, specific goal is going to be really helpful for you, not only internally to know what success looks like, but as you try to communicate that goal to your community, they'll actually know what they're coming together with you to try to accomplish. And so giving specificity is very important, especially during Giving Tuesday. The next thing you want to do is actually translate your goal into a compelling fundraising appeal. So some may call this a case for support or an offer. It's really all about what's the messaging you're going to use to communicate your goal to your supporters. And so this is where you connect your goals and objectives with your supporters and what your fundraising appeal is all about. And so your appeal really acts as the rally cry for your entire campaign. And so it's super important to focus extremely well on what that appeal looks like. And so this is really kind of the story behind your campaign. And so yes, you're trying to raise $20,000 to build a new classroom, but how are you going to communicate that to your supporters? And there's two things that is really important when you're writing a fundraising appeal or writing a case for support, is that you really focus on communicating to the head. So communicating the core elements, like why is this important? Why are you building a school building? Why are you providing care packages to the community? How do you help the elderly in your care center? How do you protect the animals? What are you doing to, why does the river matter? Why are you trying to protect the watershed? There's a lot of different things that you have to think about. And there's some practical, rational. So this is more of appealing to the rational side of your supporter base. How do you actually make sure you're communicating well? The second part is communicating to the emotional side, the heart, which is how do you actually use stories to emotionally connect your audience to the cause? And I was speaking to an organization, and they focused on protecting parks and protecting areas of our country or in other countries that had the potential of being damaged. And what I told them was, they were like, hey, we're telling this story. We're really focusing on kind of the environmental impact of just depleting these parks and this national parks, national forests. We need help. How do we do this? What is our heart appeal? We're just trying to protect land. What's the emotional connection there? And what I encourage them to do is think about what the story was. So if you're trying to tell a story to your children, or maybe to your friends, or to your nephew, or your cousin, or even kids in an elementary classroom, what would the story be that you would tell them? What would be the narrative that you position for them into why what you're doing matters? And what we see is it usually draws back to a person problem. So whether you're helping people directly, protecting the environment, serving animals, any type of cause, maybe political action groups, advocacy groups, regardless of what the cause is, arts and culture, it usually draws back to some sort of element of impact for people. And so what we talked through with them was, think about the father that used to go to these parks with their father. And how now, if these parks are gone, their children can't experience that same freedom, that same exposure to nature, that sense of things bigger than themselves. And so, how do you draw the story back to the impact that it's going to have on people? And they were able to effectively use that campaign to really drive impact, which was incredible. And so, whatever your cause is, figuring out how you can tell a story behind it, or someone that is being impacted by the work that you're doing, tell that story, not just the rational side. So how this plays out is when I was fundraising for an international relief organization, one thing that we were doing was helping Syrian refugee families that were fleeing from Syria into Jordan and parked in refugee camps. Big need, big crisis, big problem. There's rational reasons why it's important to provide a family with care packages they need to survive, because they had to leave everything they had, and they were caught in a humanitarian crisis. The problem is that the cause is so big, and the enemy, was war and conflict, seemed too hard to fight. And so it wasn't a compelling story just to express the need or the rational need that, hey, these refugees are being forced out of their homes and now they need help. What we had to do was actually tell the stories behind that, to express the humanity of the families in a way that people could understand it and relate it back to their own lives. And so we told the story of a refugee family about how there was a father that was working really hard. He was a middle class person in his community, and he was forced out by conflict. And all he wanted to do was that he expressed verbally was he wanted to care for his children and make sure he created an opportunity for them to dream of a better future. And hopefully that was a better future for his country. And that's something people can relate to, because even myself as a father of 3 boys, that story resonates with me. So it's not just about the cause or the change that you're trying to make, but it's about the impact and the story behind why that matters. And it's your job as a fundraiser to identify that. And it happens across all causes. Whether it's a museum or a community protection organization or an adoption advocacy group, it doesn't matter. There's always stories hidden within that. And so a good story will help put a face behind your campaign that supporters can connect with. It's a rally cry for them to share with others. And so when I'm sharing about the campaign with my community and friends, I can tell that story. Stories are what we share, stories are what connect us. And so by you providing your campaign in the form of a story that's able to be shared, you're more likely to increase the reach and impact of the campaign. It's also helpful because it shows the donor how they fit into the story. So they know where they can step in and take action. They also know what would happen if they didn't step in. What does failure look like? Sometimes we don't like talking about failure, but it's important for us to showcase this is what's going on. This is the call to action that someone needs to take. This is what success looks like, and this is what failure looks like. And so that's what stories do. Your fundraising appeal must communicate what you're trying to accomplish on Giving Tuesday, why that matters and what the impact will be if you're successful, and clearly tell how someone can take action and join the effort. So here's just a quick example of an organization, a made-up organization that I put together. It's just showing you how each of these elements play together. In 24 hours, we're trying to raise $24,000 to provide 24 kids the opportunity to go to school. Why does that matter? Well, you can rationally argue that kids should have the opportunity to go to school. But the difference is that kids begin dreaming of what's possible instead of what is. That's the power of education. And so the idea of dreaming is something that is really powerful. And it was a way that we could rally and connect the rational to the emotional. And then clearly communicate how someone can get involved. Take a stand with us and donate $24 or $204 today. Together, we'll provide 24 kids the opportunity to dream. focusing again on how they can act, giving them a clear way to take action, and then reminding of them of the outcome of that, delivering on the promise that they will be a part of by getting involved. So that was the first section. We really talked about the idea of how do you create a goal that's very specific, and then how do you also construct a compelling appeal, a case for support, an offer that you're going to present to your community of what you and your organization are trying to do on Giving Tuesday. Again, Giving Tuesday is a movement of generosity, but it's a movement of generosity that needs something to be generous to and for. And so you're helping to fill in that for your community. So people can say, you know, I was a part of Giving Tuesday, and this is what I was supporting. This is what I'm about. And making sure that's concise and specific is going to be helpful as you try to reach people outside of your community. So you're really trying to create a story that's worth sharing and easy to share. The second thing as part of a Giving Tuesday campaign, this is very specific to Giving Tuesday, is how can you secure a matching gift? So we see matching gifts as a great way to enhance the urgency and the impact behind a day like Giving Tuesday, where within 24 hours, you're trying to rally together as a community to accomplish something, and there's extra incentive because your impact will be matched. Now, some of you may be like, great, that would be awesome, but how do I actually secure a matching gift? There's no way I'm going to be able to do that. And it's not an essential part of a Giving Tuesday campaign, but it is worth trying to secure a matching gift. Even though it's already November and we're only a few weeks away, we have a few strategies that we think are helpful as you consider on how you can secure a matching gift. So a matching grant from a partner or major donor, campaigns with matching gifts work extremely well for short timelines, and plus it gives publicity for both your campaign and the sponsor. Here's an example where one of our customers, Neverthirst, was able to find a matching partner and express that. And so it helped enhance the narrative as part of their communication. So here's just a few tips on how you can actually go about securing it. Because I think there's an assumption that securing a matching gift is a process or something that's really hard. What I always encourage people to do is, instead of trying to go externally outside your organization and pitch a matching gift to a corporate sponsor or a community partner, unless you have very strong relationships with someone and you can have that conversation easily, is to first look at some major donors or even your board that are already going to support your cause this year. And what's important about that, or have already supported your cause. And so there's a way that you can use gifts that you're already going to secure as an incentive to challenge others to step up. And you can use that to drive increased donations for your cause. And so if your board members are going to contribute even $5,000 or maybe $20,000, depending on your board's commitments, how about, instead of just that being a sound donation or a solid donation, leveraging that gift to help amplify and raise more money is something that's really powerful. The other thing we saw when I was working for an international relief organization is that major donors who were giving us, maybe $5,000 or even $50,000 to $100,000 loved the opportunity when their gifts were leveraged to increase giving, because they understand the idea of return on investment. And so they understand the idea that they could use their gift to actually raise more money if they agree to allow the gift to be used as a challenge gift or a matching gift. Now, many of the donors that we talked to wanted to be anonymous in this, and that was great. But as long as you have a conversation with your major donors and you communicate with them, you can use their gift as a challenge gift on Giving Tuesday to help increase the likelihood that people will give, because they know that it's being matched by a challenge gift. This is something that, if any of you listen to NPR or public radio or any kind of privately community-funded radio, they do extremely well. They have these challenges where there's, hey, if people give this hour, it's going to be matched. All of that is pre-planned and strategic in a way that's going to help them unlock more giving, increasing the urgency, inviting people and giving them a reason to give now. Great opportunity to be a part of this. It's a great example of an organization that just had $1,500 and they said, hey, double your donations up to $1,500 will be matched. And they were able to leverage that to raise $6,000, which their goal was only $5,000. Next thing we're going to talk about a little bit is how do you actually craft a promotion timeline. So what is the steps or the timeline that you can walk through on how you promote your campaign successfully to your community, both maybe your email subscribers or your supporters, donors, community on Facebook, however you communicate with your supporters, what channels you decide to use, what's kind of a typical timeline. And so the timeline I'm going to share with you all is one that I used and we used at the organization that I worked at to effectively promote Giving Tuesday. It may not be fit for everybody, but it's a good benchmark for you to work from. And so what we see though is that no matter what your timeline is or what your plan is, most successful campaigns have a clear timeline of activities pre-planned throughout the campaign. And this will ensure you and your team know exactly what will happen when and by whom throughout the campaign. So there's no surprises, especially in a campaign that's only 24 hours. It's very important that you schedule out milestones when you might communicate again or who's going to be taking those actions, whether it's sending out another email, sharing an update on Facebook, or doing other communication activities that you might be involved in. I've seen organizations go as far as having their donor teams or even their whole staff just call supporters and ask for commitments on Giving Tuesday. Because again, it's a 24-hour campaign and it's something that they can involve the whole team in, or even the board members or volunteers, in helping to be a part of creating momentum behind this day of giving. So this is kind of a sample promotional timeline that I would invite you guys to follow or to use as a template guideline for you and your team as you think about your communication for Giving Tuesday. So what I see is today is November 8th. And so next week, what we would always do the week before, or like 2 weeks out from the campaign, is we would just launch our Giving Tuesday fundraising site. And then we'd send out an initial communication to actually begin setting expectations for Giving Tuesday and begin promoting that on our social channels. And so what that initial communication really focused on was showcasing what you're going to be focusing on in Giving Tuesday, inviting people that if they want to give early, they can give early, not a problem. It doesn't have to be given on Giving Tuesday. And it's actually sometimes good to build some momentum behind your campaign early before the day. So when people show up on your campaign site, there's already progress, there's already people supporting the campaign. We see that people tend to give more to campaigns that already have people giving to them. No one really likes being the first. And so if you can secure some of those donations early, it's really helpful. But also just to kind of begin seeding that story on how Giving Tuesday is not just about them giving a donation, but also being a part of communicating and rallying others to be a part of the campaign. If we go back to what we talked about a little bit earlier in regards to community-driven fundraising, what we see is that the power of recommendations and referrals is really strong. And so if you can begin to set the expectations that the way your community of supporters, whether it's a small group of donors, 10, 15, or maybe just your board, or a large group of donors, maybe you have 400, 500, 1,000 supporters, how can you get them to start beginning to think about the campaign, the appeal, so that they know that in 2 weeks, you're going to come back to them and ask them to be a part of this. And so seeding that story, planning the first kind of touch point is really helpful to do. Here in the US at least, but I think it works well, even in other places where maybe Thanksgiving isn't kind of the benchmark between or right before Giving Tuesday, is just sending out an email of appreciation and thanks to your community, reminding them that together is how you are making a change in the world. It's not that they're supporting you and your organization's making all the difference, but rather they're a part of the narrative. They're a hero in the story of impact that you and your organization is making, and just thanking them for being a part of that. No ask, simple thank you. And some organizations just communicate this through email, others do letters and thank you cards, others do phone calls. It really depends on the capacity of your organization, but at the minimum, just sending out an email of appreciation and thanks to your community is really helpful to do. Also, reminding them about Giving Tuesday the following week, and again, planting that seed again is really helpful as well. The next thing is the day before Giving Tuesday. And so what we saw as effective is, again, you want to plant the seed again. You don't want to just show up on Giving Tuesday and it be the first time you mentioned it. You want to set expectations and prepare people to process what you're trying to do in 24 hours. And so we always send out an email the day before that really outlines how they can get involved. And so maybe giving them clear steps and saying, hey, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., we're going to send you an email that has a link on how you can share the campaign with your community and friends. You can forward that email on to your colleagues, your family, whomever you think would want to be a part of this campaign. Or, hey, here's the link to the campaign page. Will you commit to sharing it out with your friends and family or sharing it on Facebook at a very specific time in the morning? So again, you're kind of setting out the ABCs of what you want them to do as part of the campaign the next day. And if you've already seeded on the 15th and the 20th and the 27th, that kind of sets and builds the spark. It's kind of like building the kindling that you're going to spark on the morning of the 28th, which is Giving Tuesday. And so on the 28th, it's really about sending out an email outlining the why behind your appeal and how to take action, sending a second follow-up email that afternoon to those who have donated, just updating them on the progress. Your role as a fundraiser on Giving Tuesday is really to be the cheerleader, the kind of fuel behind the campaign to remind people about what everyone's coming together to do on Giving Tuesday and how they can be involved. So even those that have donated, it doesn't stop with donating. How can you encourage them to share? And sharing doesn't just mean on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. Sharing can mean by forwarding emails. I don't know if any of you guys remember, but chain emails were like a big thing 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so forwarding emails is an underutilized tactic on how to expand the reach of your campaign. And so even inviting them, hey, like just forward this email on to 5 people you know that might be interested in hearing about this campaign and getting involved this Giving Tuesday. Don't underestimate the power of email. We've seen it be more powerful than people think. The last thing is that once Giving Tuesday is over, the campaign doesn't end there. What we would always do is follow up the energy, the excitement with a thank you email the next morning. To those that donated, those that didn't donate, we wanted to make sure our community of supporters felt as though together we accomplished something. Whether we met our goal or didn't meet our goal, we just wanted to celebrate the why and the impact of what we actually accomplished. And then also showcase that people can still help. They can still get involved. The cause doesn't end when the campaign is over. And so inviting them on saying, hey, if you didn't get a chance to give yesterday, here's a way to give. Some people decide that it's a great opportunity to roll their campaign into year end and just spend the last, or leverage the same case of support, the same appeal, the same goal as kind of the December appeal to help push that for a few more days or through the end of the year. That's kind of a sample playbook. It's not perfect, might not be fit for everyone, but I think it's a set template of what you should do at the minimum to be successful. And so some organizations might do much more than this, some might do a little bit less, but this is kind of a benchmark to help you and your team really think well about the types of communication you need to be successful on Giving Tuesday. The last thing you need to do, which is what we're going to spend the next few minutes talking about, is how you actually craft campaign assets for your campaign. So how do you begin to put together what you need to drive success on Giving Tuesday? So this is basically setting up a fundraising site or a specific online donation page where you're going to send everybody. And so we're going to talk about that, best practices. We're going to talk about how you can write email messages to promote. So when we talked about these 5, 6, 7 emails that you're going to send, well, there's some best practices in how you actually go at that. And then how do you draft your social media posts? How do you be effective in that? So the first thing we're going to talk about is how do you actually create a dedicated fundraising site for Giving Tuesday? And so what we see is the most successful campaigns have a specific Giving Tuesday fundraising site or online donation form. And so what I highly encourage you don't do is send people to your homepage or send people to your generic donation form. The reason is that it loses the momentum and the social aspect of what Giving Tuesday is all about, which is rallying people together for a very specific goal and creating that community coming together to be a part of accomplishing it. And so it provides a central location for all of your promotional activities. So when you post social posts or you send emails or you invite people to share, you're driving them back to a very specific place for them to be a part of the campaign. It's also a place where you're showcasing project or progress and campaign updates. And it's a central page your supporters can share and provides social proof behind your campaign so that they know when you say we're coming together, there is a coming together. People see that, whether it's the number of donors, the progress towards your goal. It's a great way to do this. And so there's lots of ways to create an online fundraising page. But what we wanted to do was show you how you can do that with CosVox. And so how you can set up an online fundraising site easily that's dedicated to your Giving Tuesday goal. And so Rob's going to be joining us now to really walk us through that process. And so what I do want to focus on is that this is just one way. So we have built a tool for you to be able to create this. There are other ways, but we feel like CosVox provides you a great, effective way to be able to create a very easy to use, simple, clear, dedicated page. Rob's going to join us to kind of go over that, but then we're also going to come back and talk about how you effectively use email to promote your campaign and how you effectively use social media. And then we'll end today's conversation with a live Q&A. So stick around, make sure you don't miss it. Rob, do you want to join us to kind of walk us through?
Yes, definitely. Thanks, Noah, for all the great tips so far. I really love what you talked about in terms of the impact metric of how people can really craft a campaign around a certain number that donors can rally around, like $24 yields a day of housing or $100 equals a scholarship. So making something really tangible during Giving Tuesday is super important like that, especially when a lot of other organizations are fundraising during Giving Tuesday. The more you're able to focus on impact and the potential impact that donors can have, then the bigger step up you have to really cut through that noise. So I just want to reiterate what Noah mentioned. The one thing that I highly beg you guys to not do is to don't direct your donors, don't direct your audience just to your homepage. They're going to get lost. They're going to jump around. You're going to lose a lot of donors that way. And don't direct them just to your donation form either, because that becomes really transactional. And when we're talking about fundraising, what really works, especially during Giving Tuesday, is to have something that's social, having something that tracks progress, having something that really shows an impact so that donors can get really excited and then from there make a donation. Well, we're 21 days, or 20 days actually from Giving Tuesday, so you guys have a lot on your plate. And one of the things that we want to help with, that we can help with here at CosVox, if you don't have a solution already, is the ability for you guys to easily create a Giving Tuesday campaign site in just a few minutes. So that's what I'm actually going to do in about 3 to 4 minutes. I'm going to show you how you can create an online fundraising campaign site with all the best practices filled in, a lot of which Noah has talked about already. So this is just the Clovis Community College. They're an education organization here that's using CosVox. And this is the Giving Tuesday campaign that hasn't launched yet. So hopefully I'm not revealing a secret here, but essentially what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna show you how you can easily create your own fundraising campaigns on CosVox. So after you create an account on CosVox, you go into the admin dashboard, and it's super easy. There's no coding required. You don't have to hire an IT person, a developer. You can just do this yourself. You just click on create a new campaign, and let's title it Giving Tuesday 2017. So you just click through a few times. We take you through the easy setup process. Everything's on screen. There's no coding required. Let's set a $10,000 fundraising goal, and then you can select your end date for your Giving Tuesday campaign. So let's find Tuesday. Let's just do 11 p.m. over here. From here, we have an easy design editor that allows you just to make your campaign site look like and feel like your own organization. So if I wanted to upload my own logo, this is just a Giving Tuesday heart over here. I can change the colors, or let's say I want to upload a background image. Now I can easily do this on CosVox. And this is important because as you're designing your Giving Tuesday campaign, the more you're able to make it more visual, the more emotive, the more it's tied to your organization's story, then the more impact you're gonna have. So let me just find a video I wanna showcase. If you guys don't have a a video, then that's perfectly okay. You do have some time to make a video. If you don't have that time, you can easily just put in your own image. And then from there, you can easily customize other aspects of your donation form as well, for example. So everything is point and click, very visual. There's no coding required. You can even put in content very easily. So let's say I want to copy and paste something from my Word doc, then I can easily do this. So just within a few minutes, you can easily do this on CosVox. The other part over here, which is the last part of the setup, so we've gone through the page creation through our easy design editor, is you can connect your Stripe account or your PayPal account to take donations. So most of you guys over here already have a PayPal account, so you can easily use that. And all you have to do is just click on save, then your fundraising site for GivingTuesday is complete. So super easy to do through our design interface over here. You can publish it. I can put this online. Let's go through this. And now I've launched my own GivingTuesday campaign site in just about 3 minutes. So you guys can do this as well. If you do need help doing this, or if you have questions on this, you can always contact our support team, which we do provide a full support team as well as one-on-one service. In addition to that, over here at CosVox, as you're designing your GivingTuesday campaign site, we do have a couple of different plans that fit different types of budgets as well as different types of requirements. So two big things I want to point out is that we do have a free plan, so there's no contracts, no money down. Essentially, you're just paying a 5% CosVox fee on every online donations that you take on GivingTuesday or for your year-end fundraising campaign. And we also do have 21-day trial periods on our light plan and standard plan, which includes a little bit more features as well as a little bit more service. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about CosVox, feel free to ask us during the Q&A session, as well as you can browse cosvox.com, browse our pricing, or if you're looking for a one-on-one demo, you can always go to our support area to request a one-on-one demo as well. So I'm gonna hand it back to Noah.
Thanks, Rob. And like I said, this is a huge aspect of GivingTuesday campaigns, is having a dedicated location where you can really direct people and make sure that there's a central location that is really showcasing your campaign, your progress. The other two aspects of promoting your campaign, which is we're going to spend the last 7 or so minutes on, is really email marketing and social media. I'm going to blow through this because we've gone over a little bit of our time and I want to respect your time. But just as a reminder, I'm going to be sending the slides and the recording out to everybody so you can dig in on this again when you have the time. And so there's examples and there's templates. You'll have all of that sent to your email that you use to register for today's webinar. So there's 4 components of a successful email. And so this is for GivingTuesday or for your year-end fundraising campaign emails, but we're going to focus on GivingTuesday. It's all about targeting, the subject line, content, and the call to action. The first thing is email targeting. And so if you have the capability of actually segmenting your email list into donors, subscribers, major donors, it's really important to do that. And the reason is because then you can communicate to them in a way that's most fit for that donor audience. And so you would communicate to your supporters and your donors differently than you would with maybe people that are just interested in your cause. You might communicate to larger donors and ask them to participate in a larger way. So even being able to customize what the ask is in the email is important. And so if you have the ability to target your emails, I would highly recommend you do that. Even if you just differentiate the segments by what your ask is, where you ask smaller donors to get involved with a smaller amount, and you ask larger donors to get involved with a larger amount, and you ask subscribers to just get involved in general and help share the campaign, you'll see huge results. The second thing is the subject line. So the first thing your audience sees when they receive an email is the subject line. So many of you today received an email from me that said today. And you open that email and you were like, wow, it's today, it's urgent, I'm going to open this and I'm going to see how I can be a part of something. What's going on today? And so what I encourage you to do is think well about the subject lines you use. And so a lot of times there's a huge focus on the content and the story and the messaging in the email. less focus on who the email's from and what the subject line is. And what we see is that if someone doesn't think the email is something they should read, meaning it's maybe not as personal, it's not from like a real person, or it's from an organization that they don't recognize, they're not going to open it. If it's a subject line that's like, "Hey, donate, donate, donate," they might not open that. But, it's in a very noisy environment. So if they don't open it, they don't really care what your email says. And so make sure you spend a lot of time thinking well about what subject lines and who your email should be from. What we see has been successful, not only just for us here at Cosbox, but also for nonprofits, is keeping it short, actually sending it from a real person instead of your organization, posing a question in the subject line, and even potentially putting your supporter's name in the subject line and asking them to be a part of something if you have the capability to do that. The third thing that's really important about emails is making sure that you write the content in an emotional, evoking way, in a way that's convincing, it's persuasive. And so, who, what you're helping, why the campaign is vital. Again, you're just taking your fundraising appeal, your goal, your case for support, and translating that into the copy and being very, very clear about what you're trying to accomplish. And then finally, giving them a very strong, clear call to action. The biggest mistake I see organizations make is they try to communicate too much and ask supporters to do too many things in the same email. Email should have one primary call to action and potentially a secondary call to action if needed. But really focusing on keeping your emails tight and focused will be ensure that you're communicating to your supporters exactly what you want them to do and how they can be a part of the campaign. This is another great reason why having a dedicated landing page or a dedicated fundraising site or donation page is key, because you can send them to that. You can get them out of their distraction filled inbox to your website, to your donation page, to your giving page, and then focused on that. And so they can donate there, they can read updates, they can read your appeal, and they can share your campaign all from that. But your goal with your emails is to get them from their distraction filled inbox to a place that's dedicated and owned by you so you can communicate to them effectively and they can take the actions that you really want them to be a part of. Few Giving Tuesday email essentials, just as a recap, is make sure it's a greeting and personalization, clear appeal plus story, why the giving matters and what the impact is, a single call to action, and reaffirm action plus need and how they fit as a part of it. One thing is you're going to be writing emails that you're sending out to a lot of different people. And so you're writing an email that's going to be sent out to many people. But every single one of the people that receive your email is reading it as a single person. So the key to effective emails that we've seen is make sure when you write your email, you're writing it as though only one person is reading it. Don't write it in a way that you're speaking to an audience or a crowd. It makes it easier for people to opt out of the communication because they don't feel like you're talking to them. They feel as though they're a person in the room that you are speaking to. Make sure you think about your emails in a way that you're writing them specifically to one person. They're being read by one person, and so they should be really written in a way that they are designed to be consumed by one person. My best practice in doing this is I write all my emails first to myself in an email text box, because then that forces me from my mobile phone to write an email that's concise, it's clear, and it's personal. I send that email to myself and then I edit it and craft it in a way that's effective for my audience. And that's really important to do so you make sure that you're speaking with a one-to-one voice. So the next thing we're going to talk about is how you can leverage social media, tap into your supporters' networks, and really expand your reach on Giving Tuesday. A lot has changed in 15 years, and much of our time today on the internet, on our mobile devices, is actually spent on one of these channels. More than half of social media users actually discover social initiatives or causes to invest in via social media because they see their friends, their families, their communities, people they like or they want to be like supporting causes. And so by you actually investing in a way that you're equipping your community to share your cause on Giving Tuesday, you're producing an environment that's more likely going to give you an opportunity to be seen by new people and supported by new people. Two quick things. First of all, the best content is really focused on being authentic, emotional, compelling. The one I want to focus on is relevant and timely. The thing we see is that social media just becomes another distribution channel for nonprofits. And so they take the same message and they just blast it out through email, they blast it out through social media and expect results. Social media is designed in a way to be personal. It's where people share what's going on in their lives, what they care about, what they're invested in. And so you as an organization have to think about how you can leverage that medium to effectively communicate your cause, but still be true to the heart of the platform. So people that say social media is not effective for nonprofits have missed what the core elements of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, or even Snapchat, are all about. I will say just one caveat is, like, remember, it's Giving Tuesday is not all about social media. So don't just focus solely on social media. I would if you only could focus on one thing, I'd focus on doing email well, not social media well, because I think it's actually going to drive you more results on Giving Tuesday. Here's a few social media best practices. One, share stories, showcase the why, use photos or videos, focus on engagement, link back to your fundraising site, include a clear call to action, and include the Giving Tuesday hashtag. Of social media users who donate, 56% say that they're compelled by storytelling. And so don't just ask on social media, tell stories which inspire people to want to get involved. 3 quick things before we go and wrap up today. Focus on being human on Giving Tuesday. People give to people. People come together and rally towards a change in our world together. They don't give to organizations. They don't give to organizations so organizations can do something on their behalf. Really focus on personalizing your communications. We've emphasized this a lot, but tell stories worth sharing. We strongly believe in community-driven fundraising, and so your job as a nonprofit is to really tell stories that your community can share with their community. A lot of people asked about how to acquire new donors, and we really think stories are the way to do that, because stories are what we share on social media. Stories are what we share at the water cooler. Stories are what we share at the lunch table. And stories are what we share when we go out with our friends or family, or on the weekends. And so using stories as kind of the capsule for your cause is going to help you drive more success. And the last thing is empower supporters to do something for your cause. So don't just focus on asking them to give, but know that your supporters actually have more leverage and more influence on inviting others to support your cause than you do as an organization. And so how do you tap into that? How do you make sure that you leverage that effectively so that you can be successful on Giving Tuesday? Like Rob said, just as a final thought, like, you can launch your Giving Tuesday campaign for free using CauseVox. If you liked what Rob showed you, we have a free plan that you can sign up for and be a part of and actually launch your campaign. You can learn more about that on causevox.com. You can set up a custom designed giving page and a location where you can send all your supporters. It's branded like yours, so you're sending people to your campaign site. You're not sending them into Facebook that's filled with distractions. You're also not sending them to someone else, to a third-party service, but you're really owning the look and feel and design, so they feel like they're contributing to your campaign and you get to own that experience. Again, we live in a distraction-filled environment, and so it's really important more than ever to move people from distraction-filled environments like Facebook and email into an environment where you can really focus on communicating your message clearly. And so that's what CauseVox really helps you do. Now we're going to spend the next few minutes just answering questions. So we're going to stick around for as long as we need to, maybe for 15 or so more minutes, and really focus on answering your questions. So if you have any questions about something we talked about, or you felt like we didn't address something specific, we would love to answer those questions. Rob and I are going to stick around. So if you have a question for me or for Rob, feel free to drop that in the questions pane and we can dive into those now. So let me take a look at some of these questions that have come in. Daniel says, I'm curious, how long should the Giving Tuesday campaign page live for? And what happens if the page is no longer live and the person still wants to donate through a giving campaign image they saw? Daniel, that's a great question. We usually encourage you to at least keep it up for a few days beyond Giving Tuesday, because giving to your organization, the need doesn't go away when Giving Tuesday is over. So it's really great to keep that up. What we would do is we would still keep that campaign live through the end of the year. And then we would even archive it so that if anyone ended up getting back to it, it was either redirected to our main giving page, or they still were showcased what we accomplished on Giving Tuesday together. So that's what we ended up doing. And again, that was another reason why we loved having something like Cosvox to create our giving pages, because they didn't go away when the campaign was over. We could use them as references and to kind of celebrate what we did together. We could also invite people back to the page to see what the impact was, so we could share impact updates, and we could really showcase even updates later on. So after the campaign was over, and let's say the school building was built from the money, we could actually share that again on the campaign page and celebrate with our supporters. Nancy asks, what is the call to action on the initial November 15th email? What we recommend is if you launch your campaign site or the dedicated location where you're going to host your Giving Tuesday campaign on the 13th, on the 15th, you're showcasing what you're going to be focusing on Giving Tuesday and giving them a preview of that. So they could actually link to your fundraising page to see what is going on and what they could be a part of. Ruby asks, Facebook has a donation option on their pages. Will that compete with my Giving Tuesday fundraising site? So Giving Tuesday or Facebook has a lot of options for nonprofits to donate. Again, what we see is that customers that use Cosvox use us over something like Facebook because they want an owned experience. And so they want to own the donor data, they want to own the donations, they want to receipt their donors, they want to own that relationship with their supporters. And so instead of opting into a third party processor or service like Facebook does, where they go through Network for Good, and a few other ways that they support their donation processing, it's a little different than what we offer for you to really create that owned experience. And so we highly encourage that, if that's something that's valuable to you. Creating your brand and not Facebook's, focusing on owning the customer data and the relationships and being able to kind of control the experience and customize it very specifically to your cause. Hey Molly, yes, the Q&A will be recorded. So that will be included in the recording I send out later today. Megan says, if we use Cosvox to build our fundraising site, how do donors see their donation being matched? Great question. We offer you the ability to add manual donations to your campaigns. That can be used for offline donations, but a lot of our customers who have matching gifts will use that to add a gift to the campaign on behalf of the donor that gave. So Megan, if you donated $100 to my campaign, I could go in and say, hey Megan, I just matched your campaign, your donation was matched $100. And so it would add to the progress of the campaign as donors give. Simone, you said we're an environmental organization and it can be harder to create concrete, tangible goals. Do we have an example? Rob, do you have any examples that stick out of environmental? Well, see if I can think of a good one that I've heard of in the past. We'll circle
Yeah,
back.
there are a lot of organizations, environmental stuff. Yeah, like the Sierra Club, Climate Change Action Network. Is there something specific in the question?
It was just he's asking. He feels like it's hard for him to kind of create a tangible goal because they're an environmental organization. So, what's like an example of a concrete fundraising goal they could have?
Yeah, so the two that I've seen, the first one would be around a environmental project specifically. So when it comes to like climate change, when it comes to protecting an environment, sometimes it's a really broad spectrum. Like for example, one way you can make it more tangible is, okay, how much does it cost to do a specific project for a cleanup, or to clean up, like let's say, an acre of land, or an acre, or like a cubic acre of air, for example, as a way to do it. Another way that, which is a totally different approach, is to find proxy measures. So instead of having to directly relate your fundraising campaign to a fundraising goal around how much it would cost to solve like a specific environmental issue, then it's more about getting people just to fundraise through their own personal challenge, or fundraise through an event, or to do something that is kind of a second degree that's tied to the fundraising campaign. So different approaches.
Thanks, Rob. I think you're exactly right. There's tons of different ways that you can kind of slice the pie. I think it's going back to thinking, like, why are you actually doing what you do? Like, who cares? Who would care if you stop doing your work? And what are some of the stories of why that even matters? And then kind of relating it back to that. Deborah talks about how she's already launched a campaign and created a fundraising site. Is it best to launch fundraising sites at a lot of different places for the same initiative? Deborah, absolutely not. If you have your fundraising site already set up, don't worry about that and focus much more on promoting that. You just need a single place to send your supporters on Giving Tuesday. Kristen asks, does Cosvox capture donor emails so we can follow up with them? Absolutely. One great thing about Cosvox is you own the donor data. So you get your donors' names, their email addresses, they become your supporters. And so you're able to use that to continue to follow up with them, to send them other updates throughout the campaign, thank them directly, and now really focus on inspiring and activating them to support your organization, even outside of Giving Tuesday in other ways. Dana asks, how do I keep the emails from going to spam? A lot of the email best practices we shared are going to be helpful with that. One thing that we encourage you to do is when you send emails from real people, they do better than sending them from organizations. Also, minimizing the amount of images you have in your emails. Images get kind of tagged as spam sometimes, so it's really careful or helpful not to do that. And just making sure your email is like a real email. I think email has gone too far into the creative zone where people design templates and do all these crazy things with emails. And what we've seen and with organizations we work with is simple emails, text-based emails with call to actions, hyperlinked text. Keeping it simple is best. We also see that as preventing spam filters and stuff from picking it up. Anne says, I work for a politician who is fundraising to help other candidates. Would it be appropriate for us to participate in Giving Tuesday? Hey, Anne, I think it's definitely could be. One of the things I would encourage you to do is focus on maybe a specific issue that the candidates you're fundraising for are advocates for. And so instead of raising it for a candidate to effectively run for office, rather focus on that you're focusing on a change you're trying to make. And thus, the action is to support a candidate that can put policy in place to help affect that. And so I think if you tell the narrative and the story around the change or the cause that you're rallying people together for, you're going to be more effective than necessarily saying, "Oh, we need to get John Smith elected because then he'll do this." You need to focus on the idea of making sure that the supporters, especially on a day like Giving Tuesday, feel as though they're actually the hero in the story, not your candidate. The candidate's like the sword that they're crushing with, or they're kind of cutting down or going after and making that change. So your candidate is a tool for them to accomplish the goal. Paint the picture that the donor is the hero, and you'll be more successful. Hey, Victoria, I'm going to get back to you on your question because I think your question deserves a little bit broader response. So I've marked your question, Victoria, and we'll circle back via email on your question just to make sure that we answer your question more thoroughly. Hey, David, I'm going to send out a copy of the presentation and the recording, and I'm also going to send a few links that include templates for Giving Tuesday emails and also gives you a further timeline on how to be successful on Giving Tuesday. So look for those in your inbox over the next few hours. And it'll come directly from me, David, so look for that. Someone's asking about a dance organization. How do you make a dance organization more tangible? I think what's interesting is like, why does dance matter? Why does participation in dance, both from a participant or is it if it's a performance? There's a huge influence and impact on arts and culture on a community, both from a retention standpoint in the community, increased quality of life. And so I think really focusing in on what the actual impact is of your dance company, both on the participants and or the attendees and or the community that your dance company is a part of, that's going to be a more compelling case than just your company's survival. That's one thing I think arts and culture organizations miss is that they focus more on we do all these great things, so you need to support us. We provide such value to the community, so you should support us. Instead of selling or promoting or presenting a case for and the stories behind the impact. And so, again, similar to the political candidate, your organization is not the hero. Your organization is a tool to accomplish a specific set of impact. And so you have to kind of celebrate that in how you structure the narrative. Hopefully that's helpful. Someone asks, how do you add matching gifts to Cosvox? So yes, you can add in the matching donations manually, either as a lump sum, a few lump sums, or as donations come in. You can add a matching donation so that it showcases towards your goal. So if someone gives $100 instead of the progress only moving $100, you can make it move $200. Leslie asks if they're using Giving Tuesday to kick off a month of giving in December, would it be inadvisable to use Giving Tuesday for one fundraising target and December for another? I would highly recommend maybe setting benchmarks. So, even celebrating the idea that you're going to launch a month long fundraising campaign, focusing on Giving Tuesday, maybe either doing two things. One is setting the stage to be more successful in the month of December. One thing we've seen is that some individuals will use Giving Tuesday as a way to get commitments to create personal fundraising pages and do peer to peer. And so, kind of getting those commitments on Giving Tuesday is a way for them to set a goal for Giving Tuesday. And then that drives into December. The other thing is if you have a larger fundraising goal, setting a milestone for Giving Tuesday as kind of the initial momentum and spark behind the campaign can be really successful as well. Someone says, I'm doing policy and advocacy work and I'm finding it hard to make a good impact example. It is really challenging. I would just ask, like, what is the outcome if your policy and advocacy work is successful? Who does it impact? Why does it matter to them? What is the change that you're fighting for in the world? And trying to follow those narratives down a little bit and see where you can come up with stories behind it. Yeah, Anne had asked about the political candidates. Perfect. Yeah, definitely go after that. Yeah, Victoria, I'll definitely get to your question. Hey, Dana, she says, what's the difference between a primary and a secondary call to action? One thing we see is that an initial Giving Tuesday communication, sometimes it's best to simply focus on inviting someone to get behind and support the campaign. A secondary call to action might be to forward the email to 5 of their friends. So it's kind of a do this, and then if you want to do more, do this. Well, that's all the questions we have for today. I'm so grateful that so many of you guys joined us and so many of you stuck around for the full time. I hope this was valuable, and we will be sending out the recording and the presentation slides in the next few hours just so you have those tools and resources for you to drive success for your organization. Giving Tuesday is a global day of generosity, but it's really just an opportunity for you as a fundraiser to inspire, activate, and rally people in your community around the change that you're trying to make. And so we believe together we can help good flourish. And so that's why we do this. And we hope that this was helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to reply to the email I send you. We'd be happy to dive into those more specifically. And if not, we hope to see you guys drive success on Giving Tuesday. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your Wednesday.